So today I want to go over two things with you. First, I want to go over the top three things that I look for when I look for a new truck. And even though I'm very satisfied with my 2018 Toyota Tundra as a half ton, I do check out new HD trucks. I do check out new half tons regularly. Obviously, I have a lot of reviews on those things. The other thing I want to go with you then is how would I rank the new half tons in terms of their ability as a tow vehicle for me, because I tow that across country and I do it in long legs. I've documented all this, but I want to talk to you about what I look at. And so first, let's talk about the first three things, the three things that are most important to me. Number one, and I know a lot of people are going to say well, payload, towing capacity, and I've talked about that stuff. That stuff gets a little bit sketchy to me. My number one thing is the gross rear axle weight rating. When you're towing, I think that's the most important component of your vehicle. That's where a lot of the additional weight's going to go when you add it to the vehicle. It's also going to be the thing that ultimately determines how much you can really load that vehicle up with. When we look at what's happened lately in the half-ton market, Toyota, for example, my second generation 2018 and most of the second gens had a 4,150 pound rear axle weight rating. Now they max out at 3,800 and change. They've dropped about 300 pounds off that rear axle, and that's pretty significant. For example, when I travel, one of the things I do is I travel with a Predator generator that I put in the rear of my truck behind the axle. When you're loading weight behind the axle, you're loading that rear axle up even more. So number one, gross rear axle weight rating. Now, Ford and GM both have, I think Ford calls it a max trailering. I think GM calls it a max towing. I might have them reversed. I can't remember. Everybody's got their own name. But they do add a 4,150 pound rear axle weight rating when you get those vehicles. That's a big deal that you can do that. And of course, the Nissan Titan XD, which I think would be, and it's because it's not a full 3/4 ton, which I think would be the ideal half-tonish truck for towing if it just had an additional 25 gallons in that fuel tank that it's got. But it's at 4,900 in terms of its rear axle, so it stands out amongst all these vehicles as being a little bit higher than everything else. Now, the next thing that's important to me, and I've got a lot of videos documenting this and documenting why it's so important, is range. So number one was importance of the rear axle weight rating. Number two is range. How far can I go? And I don't just mean miles per gallon, right? I mean what's the size of the fuel tank? Ultimately, what you're going to find out is when you get to towing a certain size travel trailer, especially with a half ton, if you're in that, somewhere between 5,000 and 7,500 to 8,000 pound range, you're going to find that all the half tons perform pretty much in the same ballpark when it comes to their MPGs. So the MPGs aren't as important to me as it is how far I can go. That's why I like my Tundra so much, is it's got a 38-gallon gas tank. It's a gasoline tank. My Tundra does very well when towing, and again, I've documented all that. And for the size travel trailer I tow, which currently is coming in at about 5,500 to 5,700 pounds total, I'm getting in the neighborhood of about 10 on the interstate, and I do travel with the speed of traffic at the interstate. Now, when you look at that, there are a number of issues with that range. And for example, you still have Ford has a 36-gallon tank available. Toyota in the upper end trims you can get with a 34-gallon tank. Ram has a 33-gallon tank, and I think those are all sufficient. Unfortunately, the rest of them, now if you're not getting an upper trim in a Ford, you're looking at something in the mid-20s, 25-ish gallons. Similarly, in the Nissan Titan XD and the regular Titan, they only offer a 26-gallon tank. In the GMs, so in Chevy and GMC, you only get a 24-gallon gas tank. Now, when it comes to the GMs, you can get that 3.0 liter Duramax, and that changes things a little bit. It does a little bit better at towing in that range, I think. And so you may get a couple miles per gallon back, so your range may extend a little bit. But it's not unusual for me to go ahead and tow, and when I tow, I want to tow at a significant clip. I want to tow with traffic, and I want to do it usually for about 4 to 5 hours at a time, which means typically I'm traveling anywhere between about 240 and 300 miles when I tow. Now, that's not going to be able to be done in that Titan XD at all with its 24-gallon gas tank, and that thing's a fuel hog, whether it's towing or not. It's certainly not going to be able to be done in the Toyota with the 25-gallon gas tank, or it's also not going to be able to be done in the Ram with the smaller gas tank, the Ford with the smaller gas tank, etc. And so you want to know what size fuel tank you're getting and then what kind of fuel you're using, again, expecting that you're going to do a little bit better with diesel. The third thing I think about is comfort and convenience, right? And when I say comfort and convenience, I kind of mean this all-encompassing thing, including utility. And so, for example, one of the things I love that Ford and GM have done is these innovative tailgate designs, and I think it's very critical for a lot of people, especially as people get older. Our population's getting older. Baby boomers are aging rapidly. They're pushing toward that 80-year mark in just about a year and a half. They're going to be, this is 2023. About a year and a half, baby boomers are going to start turning 80. A lot of knee replacements out there, a lot of hip replacements. They want to do things, they want to stay active. I think, and then you have people with injuries. People, we have a lot of people that have come back from conflicts overseas. They've had amputations, whether it's just through the aging process, through an injury, whatever it is. And so these designs that allow people to get into their bed easier, I think, are very advantageous. And my recommendation to the ones that aren't currently doing it, like Toyota's not doing anything. I don't know if Nissan's going to continue selling trucks or not, but they're not doing anything. I think they should think about adding something like that to their lineup. And other things I think about in the terms of the comfort and convenience. I travel with, for example, like I mentioned, a generator, and I put that in the back of my truck. I can't fit that into that new Toyota truck. The bed's not tall enough for it. GM offers a truck bed that's superior to all the others in my opinion, especially in the CrewMax configuration that most of us are getting nowadays, myself included. Some people don't like the CrewMax; they always want a long bed. That's fine; it's whatever suits your needs. But GM's has the deepest, the widest, and the longest. They also happen to have the widest cabin inside, which is really impressive to me. So GM offers a lot in terms of their ability to store and create convenience for you. They have blind spot monitoring. They have the rear view mirrors with the that are cameras, the rear view mirror cameras, essentially that GM has. Toyota has that currently. I'm not sure if any of the other manufacturers have that, but those are things you want to look at. The biggest one there, and to me, the biggest one in that comfort category to me is the Ford. Ford has that power boost. Now, the power boost would be great if it ran all the time, and my understanding is there have been a lot of issues with it. I don't necessarily think there's so many issues that it's not worth looking into, but that's something for somebody like I can still lift that generator that I have that weighs about 100 pounds into my bed, but there won't be long I won't be able to do that. And I always want to travel with a good generator. That 7,200 kilowatt generator, or 7,200 watt generator that Ford has is going to be great for traveling with at a point in time where I can't lift into the bed anymore. Maybe some other manufacturers will have something similar, but I really like that in terms of what it offers people. So as you think about all these things, and so those are the big things, right? I think number one is your rear axle weight rating. You have to be able to move that stuff safely. Number two is, of course, to me, is range, because when I tow long distance. Now, if you're just going short distances, and you maybe just take your camper to the lake on the weekends 100 miles away, it's not as big of a deal. And number three is all those convenience things, and you want to see how they put and play in together. So with that in mind, here's kind of the breakdown of where I'm at relative to how I rank them. And there's none of them that I like better than my current Tundra, and I would probably go to an HD truck, like I said, for my next vehicle with everything currently the way it is in the half-ton market, even though for the travel trailer I have, which is a 23-foot Airstream currently, my Tundra is plenty to do it. Most half-tons are plenty to do it. So, but number one for me would be the GM. Now, it'd be specific in the GM. For me, the GM would be the 3-liter Duramax diesel that they have paired with their max towing package, because I've already told you that is really important to me to get that gross rear axle up to 4,150 pounds, because I know how I'm going to load the vehicle. The other thing about that is GM doesn't make that available in their highest trims. They don't make that available in either the AT4X or in the Denali or the Denali Ultimate. You can get in the Denali and the AT4, you can get the 3-liter Duramax diesel, but you can't get it with the max trailering package. The AT4X and the AT4, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense anyway, but it certainly would make sense to get that in the Denali and the Denali Ultimate. You could get it previously in the High Country, so the Chevy equivalent of the GMC, the High Country, you could get that pairing. Right now, you can't get it. And so for that reason, it's a little bit, that's where it falls up a little bit short for me. I do tend to like the higher trim vehicles. The other issue that I have with the GMs in that configuration is diesel's messy. It just is. It requires depth. It's more work. It's, and so the increased maintenance associated with that detracts from me a little bit. But GM's number one for me. Number two for me would be the Ford F-150. Because when you look at those reasons I outlined, well, number one, I can get it with a 4,150-pound rear axle, so it hits my number one right away. Number two, I want range. I can get it in a 36-gallon fuel tank. And number three is those comfort and convenience features. And I certainly can. Now, I'm not crazy about turbo V6s for a lot of towing like I do, which, I'm towing a heavy travel trailer anywhere from about 14 to about 17,000 miles a year. I do it in long legs, typically between 700 and 1,000 miles in a day is not unusual. Sometimes I'll do that in back-to-back days. And so those turbos going all the time, it makes me a little concerned. People may disagree with me on that. That's okay. You can have your opinion, I can have mine, but tell me why. I don't like the heat. I don't like those turbos on all the time. It makes me nervous, and they're going to be expensive to repair. I like the simplicity of a naturally aspirated V8 for that kind of work. If you feel differently, please tell us why. But the other thing, like I talked about, was the convenience and having that power boost. Ford started with that EcoBoost a little over a decade ago. I really think they've gotten that to a very good place, the EcoBoost by itself. I'm certain over the next few years they're going to get this power boost to a very solid place. And when they get that power boost to a very solid place and it pairs well with that onboard generator, it's going to be hard to argue against that as a half ton if nobody has anything out to put up against it. Number three for me is Ram. Ram, as far as I know, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, please post, but I don't think Ram offers a max trailering or a max towing equivalent where you get a increased rear axle in their half ton. I just don't think they do that. And so that's where their big knock is for me. Range, that you can get it with a 33-gallon fuel tank. That should be plenty for long distance towing. Again, I want to be able to make sure I can go at least 4 hours at a time without stopping. So that wouldn't be an issue. I can get it in that configuration. When it comes to comfort and convenience, except for the tail, I don't love Ram's, split tailgate thing. I don't really have a use for that. It's not as convenient to me as the steps that GM and Ford have built into theirs. And so, but everything else about Ram from a comfort and convenience standpoint, Ram ranks really high. But again, the rear axle thing makes me concerned. And if I'm wrong, somebody let me know, and I would probably bump Ram at least above Ford at that point. Ram, like I said, a lot of things well. A couple misses for me, at least one big miss for me. Otherwise, not terribly great. So number four for me, I have the Toyota Tundra at number four. Now it's hard to say. People think that I hate that truck. I don't hate that truck. I just don't think it's a truck. I think, and you know what the telltale sign is of that? In one of my other videos, I took a lot of flack for pointing out how small the back seat of that is, particularly in that dual cab model. And when you go in there, you can't put an adult person back there. You can't hardly put a teenager back there for any length of time. It is so tight. It is so small. It is effectively nothing but a bench. And what that tells you is that, what the engineers here in the U.S. were straddled with was this global architecture that they had to figure out how to make a truck fit. They had to figure out how to fit the square peg into the round hole, or how to fit the round peg into the square hole. And it just doesn't work. And it doesn't work on so many levels. Now, Toyota's got a great reputation. There are a lot of good things there. I'm sure they'll figure out some of it, and I'm sure it'll become better over the years, as Toyota always does. But right now, I can't put it any higher than number four. And really, when I think about it, because they dropped the rear axle, and it's no longer 4150 rear axle, it's now, I think, 3860, if I'm not mistaken, is where they kind of settled in at. There were some varied numbers for a while. I just don't love it. Range-wise, 34-gallon fuel tank, range should be fine. Comfort and convenience it's really kind of sketchy on the comfort and convenience. There have been a lot of issues, a lot of quality control issues, a lot of cheap materials. I just don't think it makes it that well. The one for me then that comes in last, and this is kind of interesting, is the Nissan Titan XD. I'm not going to talk about the Titan so much because I think they have a better offering in essentially the same price range, which is the Titan XD. And what's interesting about that is it's a little more than your typical half ton. It's not quite a 3/4 ton. Like I said, on the rear axle side, 4,900 pound rear axle, I can use that thing all day long. On the comfort and convenience side, it's got the most comfortable seats of any vehicle, any half ton currently being offered. It's absolutely got the most comfortable seats. It's got good appointments. I think it's well laid out. What some people will disagree with me on that. If you do, go ahead and disagree with me and let me know why. But the Achilles heel of that thing is it is a gas hog, and that doesn't bother me as long as it's got an appropriate fuel tank, and it just doesn't. You can't compare a truck. You can't pair a truck that gets 16 miles to the gallon on the highway and gets 9 gallons towing, a decent sized travel trailer with a 24-gallon gas tank. It just doesn't work. And so it's really disappointing. And then that big miss, it makes me put it number 5. If I think about it more, maybe I was, if I were to buy one, if I were to have to buy one today, I would probably buy I would probably buy the Titan XD before the Tundra. But the other part of that is if the Titan XD if Nissan just fixed that one thing about the Titan XD and gave that thing a 36 or a 40-gallon fuel tank, it would instantly go to number 1 for me. There'd be no question. That rear axle combined with range, combined with their level of comfort and convenience, the spaciousness of that bed, all the things I could do with it, that they would become the darling of the travel trailer industry, in my opinion. And that's all they have to change. I'm not sure why they don't do it. Anyway, that's my list. Those are the 3 things I base looking for a vehicle on, and those are the way I would currently rank the vehicles as new vehicles. Now, again, I like some offerings, particularly my Toyota Tundra, particularly the second-gen Tundra, has a better offering and a more capable half-ton. And if I really were to have to buy today, I would probably go to an HD. But tell me what you think. What do you think is the best half-ton out there and why? I want to know. I like learning this stuff, and I would appreciate it if you shared your thoughts. Thanks for watching.